Hey, you know that old house at the end of Elm Street, right? Jenny asked. Her voice hushed, despite the cafe's buzzing chatter. Her friend Laura nodded, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. The one with the creepy fence and the overgrown garden? What about it? Well, Jenny leaned in closer, her eyes wide with excitement. My cousin's friend said they saw a light in the attic window last night. It flickered, just like in those ghost movies you like. Laura rolled her eyes. You don't actually believe in that stuff, do you? Jenny's expression grew serious. Maybe we should check it out. Like, for real. The two friends decided to investigate after the cafe closed. They approached the house with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The moon cast eerie shadows across the cracked sidewalks, and the trees above them whispered in the breeze. Laura clutched her flashlight tightly, its beam cutting through the darkness as they reached the rusted gate. The paint peeled from the wooden fence like ancient skin, and the ivy that had once been green was now a sickly shade of brown. You go first, Laura whispered, nudging Jenny. Jenny took a deep breath and pushed the gate open. It creaked loudly, echoing through the quiet night. They stepped onto the property, the dead grass crunching beneath their shoes. The house loomed before them, tall and foreboding, its windows staring down like hollow eyes. The attic light was indeed on, flickering like a trapped firefly. They crept closer, their hearts racing. Jenny's hand was clammy as she reached for the doorknob. To their surprise, the door was unlocked. It swung open with a groan that seemed to come from the very soul of the house. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of dust and decay. They stepped into the foyer, their flashlights bobbing with every step they took. It's like nobody's lived here in years, Laura murmured, her voice barely audible. The floorboards creaked as they climbed the stairs, each step bringing them closer to the attic. The flickering light grew brighter, casting a ghostly glow that danced on the cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. When they reached the attic door, they paused, listening. The only sound was the distant tick of a clock and the mournful wail of the wind outside. Jenny gripped the cold metal doorknob and turned it slowly. The door opened with a squeal that sent chills down Laura's spine. They stepped into the attic, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight. The light grew more intense, pulsing like a heartbeat. They shone their lights around the cluttered space, revealing a jumble of forgotten furniture and dusty trunks. And in the center, a rocking chair moving back and forth, all by itself. They froze, their breaths shallow and quick. Suddenly, the chair stopped, and the flickering light grew still. Laura swallowed hard, feeling a presence that seemed to suck the air from the room. Jenny, she whispered, her voice shaking. I think we should leave. But Jenny was already moving towards the chair, her curiosity overwhelming her fear. As she drew closer, a faint sound reached their ears, a soft, mournful tune, playing on an old, out-of-tune piano in the corner. Laura's hand tightened around the flashlight, her palms slick with sweat. The piano's keys were moving on their own, the melody haunting and sad. Jenny reached out to touch the chair, her hand trembling. As her fingertips brushed the fabric, the chair rocked faster. The music grew louder. Laura's grip on her flashlight tightened, her eyes darting around the room. A sudden chill swept through the attic, making their teeth chatter. Jenny, Laura hissed, tugging at her friend's sleeve. We need to get out of here. But Jenny was entranced, her hand hovering just above the chair's back. And then, without warning, the chair stopped. The music ceased. The silence was so profound, it was almost a scream. Laura's pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the sound of her own racing heart. The light in the room grew dimmer, as if something was drawing the energy away from it. A sudden coldness enveloped them, the kind that seeped into their bones and made them ache. Laura's breath fogged in the frigid air, and she could feel the hair on her arms standing on end. Something was in the room with them, something malevolent. From the corner of her eye, Laura saw a shadow detach from the wall. It grew larger, denser, and began to take shape. A figure, tall and gaunt, with long, stringy hair and a tattered dress that trailed behind her. The ghostly woman's eyes glowed with an unearthly light, focusing on Jenny. Laura's scream was muffled by a hand that appeared from nowhere, clamping over her mouth. The figure glided closer to Jenny, her eyes never leaving the girl's terrified face. Jenny tried to back away, but her legs refused to move. The ghostly woman reached out a translucent hand, and as it touched Jenny's cheek, a jolt of cold shot through her body. Laura's eyes widened in horror as she watched her friend's skin turn pale, her eyes glaze over and her mouth hang open in a silent scream. The ghost's hand withdrew, and Jenny crumpled to the floor like a rag doll. Laura's scream was finally released, piercing the silence like a shard of glass. The figure turned to Laura, its gaze boring into her soul. Laura's legs gave out, and she stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. It rolled away, casting wild, fleeing shadows across the room. The ghostly woman approached, the floorboards not even protesting under her weightless steps. Laura tried to call out for help, but no sound would come. Her hand fumbled in her pocket for her phone, her trembling fingers finding it and dialing 911. But there was no signal, only a mocking silence. Panic surged through Laura as the figure leaned over Jenny's unconscious form. Laura's mind raced, trying to remember anything she'd read about ghosts, about what to do. Then she recalled a tale her grandmother had once told her about using salt to protect against malevolent spirits. Her eyes searched the room and fell upon a small shaker on a dusty shelf. With a burst of courage, Laura dashed across the room, snatching the salt shaker and flinging its contents at the ghost. The air grew thick and static, and the ghost recoiled with a hiss. Laura didn't wait to see if it worked. She grabbed Jenny and dragged her out of the attic, down the stairs, and through the house. They stumbled out the front door, the night air feeling like a warm embrace after the icy attic. Laura didn't stop until they were several houses down, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Jenny stirred in her arms, her eyes fluttering open. Laura's relief was palpable. What happened? Jenny croaked, her voice weak. We found the ghost, Laura managed to say, her voice still shaking. We need to tell someone. Jenny nodded, her eyes wide with fear. As they turned back to the house, the light in the attic went out, leaving them in darkness. The house stood silent, a brooding sentinel with secrets it would not easily give up. The next day, the local news reported the mysterious death of an old woman whose body was found in the abandoned house on Elm Street. She had been dead for years, but no one knew who she was or how she'd come to be there. Laura and Jenny never spoke of their night of terror again, but every time they passed the house, they could feel its cold, watching eyes on them. The ghost of the old woman remained, her mournful piano playing echoing through the night, a chilling reminder of the power of the unseen world that had brushed so close to their own. Life returned to normal, but the memory of the ghostly encounter lingered like a bad dream. Laura couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even in the safety of her own home. Jenny, on the other hand, seemed changed. She was quieter, often lost in thought, and had an unhealthy pallor. Laura knew she had to find a way to help her friend, to break the grip the ghost had on her. One night, unable to sleep, Laura decided to do some research. She dug through dusty books at the library, looking for any mention of the house or its past. Hours later, she stumbled upon a name: Edith McAllister, the woman who had once lived in the house and whose spirit had so violently claimed it as her own. Laura's heart raced as she read the tragic story of Edith's life, a tale of loneliness and loss that had led to her eventual suicide. Determined to free Jenny from Edith's grasp, Laura approached a local paranormal expert named Mr. Graves. He listened to their story with a solemn expression, nodding slowly. "The only way to help your friend," he said, "is to give Edith what she never had in life: peace. You must perform a cleansing ritual and lay her spirit to rest." The instructions Mr. Graves gave them were simple, but required courage and respect for the supernatural. Laura and Jenny gathered the necessary items: sage, candles, and holy water, and approached the house once more. This time, they were armed with knowledge and purpose. As they stepped through the creaking gate, the wind howled a mournful tune, as if the house itself was aware of their intentions. The attic door was still open, the rocking chair unmoving. Laura took a deep breath and began the ritual, her voice strong despite her trembling hands. They lit the candles, spread the salt, and burned the sage, filling the room with a sweet, cleansing smoke. The air grew colder, and the shadows grew restless. Laura could feel Edith's presence, a sadness so profound it was almost tangible. "We're here to help you, Edith," Laura whispered. "Find peace and leave us alone." The ghostly figure materialized before them, looking even more distraught than before. Her eyes searched Laura's face, as if seeking understanding. Laura offered her hand, and to her amazement, Edith took it. A sudden warmth filled the room, and the light from the candles grew brighter. Edith's hand grew warmer, and Laura could feel the strength returning to her friend. Jenny's eyes cleared, and color flooded back into her cheeks. The ghostly woman looked at Laura, and for a brief moment, she saw the pain in Edith's gaze soften. With a nod, she released Laura's hand and turned to the window. The wind outside had stilled, and the moon shone clear and bright. The attic grew colder, and Edith began to fade, the light from the candles dimming. Laura and Jenny watched in awe as she stepped into the moonlight and disappeared. The house felt different now, the air lighter. The piano played one final poignant note, and then silence fell, a peaceful embrace that had been long absent from its hallowed halls. In the days that followed, the house on Elm Street began to change. The ivy grew green again, the windows no longer stared with hollow eyes, and the fence was slowly repaired by an anonymous hand. Laura and Jenny knew that Edith's spirit had found peace. They never forgot the night they'd faced their fears together, but they didn't speak of it often. It remained a secret bond between them, a reminder of the darkness they'd survived. The house was eventually sold and transformed into a bright, cheerful home, a stark contrast to its former self. The new owners never knew the secrets it held, the whispers of the past that had once filled its walls. Laura and Jenny moved on with their lives, but every time they drove down Elm Street, they'd glance at the house, remembering the night they danced with the supernatural and lived to tell the tale. And in the quiet of their hearts, they'd whisper a silent thank you to Edith McAllister, the ghost who had finally found. But the peace didn't last. A month later, strange occurrences began to plague the town. Shadows moved in the corners of people's eyes, whispers of forgotten names echoed through the streets, and objects would inexplicably go missing, only to reappear in places they'd never been. Laura started noticing a pattern. A sense of unease grew within her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Edith's spirit had left behind more than just a story. You think this story is over? It's not. It's still playing. In your world. Inside your phone. When you turn off this screen, the last thing you will see will be my eyes. And when you close your eyes, the last sound you hear will be mine. Loplels, subscribe, like, comment, and share. PLZ. To be continued. Forward horror.